Well, who would have thought that publishing a magazine for sports officials would provide an opportunity to sit in chambers listening to arguments being presented on appeal to the 7 justices of the Wisconsin Supreme Court? I had that opportunity recently, and it was fascinating on a number of levels. First and foremost, the appeal being heard had at its core origination 2 unsportsmanlike conduct foul calls made by Mike Arendt, a highly respected wrestling referee in our state. Second, it was clearly stated by both sides involved in the appeal, from a legal standpoint, Mike's calls were no longer an issue, though they certainly were at the start of this case back in 2019. What was at issue was whether the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association, the WIAA, wrongly imposed its disqualification rules on the wrestler, which took him out of the regional round of the state tournament. We assembled at the appointed time. The room was packed. The wrestlers' parents, the halters, who were driving the case forward, were on hand. 5 or 6 representatives of the WIAA were on hand. Attorneys were on hand. Also in the room were students from 2 schools who had just happened to be touring the state capitol that day. There was not an extra seat available anywhere. My wife Jean and I sat in the back row. Because of the smallish size of the room, we were not far from the justices. An interesting, though inconsequential, side note: 6 of the 7 justices were female. Before the justices entered the chambers, a law enforcement officer sternly gave all of us in the audience the ground rules: no talking, no phones, no eating, no recording, no noise, etc. When she was done, the justices entered. The Chief Justice then addressed the room and the attorney from each side. Only those 2 individuals would have the podium to address the court. Each side got 30 minutes to present its brief. The first to speak from the floor was the attorney for the WIAA. Within the first minute of his remarks, one of the justices interrupted him with a question. Quickly, I understood this type of hearing gives the justices their opportunity to ask questions of the plaintiffs and the defense. Throughout the next hour, there was serious and thoughtful questioning and answering, and numerous calls for clarifications. As all of this was transpiring, I felt a sense of gravitas. The people present that morning were on hand fundamentally because of something a sports official had done. Mike had ruled correctly, by the way, 2 unsportsmanlike conduct fouls on wrestler Hayden Halter. By rule, Halter was then DQ'd from the next event, which took him out of the postseason tournament. His parents and his coach were not accepting of Mike's calls, nor of the WIAA's enforcement. The matter went to trial court, which sided with the WIAA, then to the appeals court, which regretfully sided with the wrestler, and then today to the Supreme Court, with the WIAA pressing its case on behalf of its regulations. Even though it was stated that Mike's calls were not at issue, from where I sat, they still were. The appeal filed by the wrestler's legal team referenced those calls 9 times. At the core, what the referee did in 2019 was now being referred to as a distant ivory tower. Let's hope the judicial system doesn't mire itself in such journeys. Our Supreme Court's decision could come as late as next June, and we will let you know. Thank you.